you're looking for some good Star Trek to fill the void left by today's less than stellar examples, then ReExamined Reads, the Star Trek edition, is for you. We'll review works written in the 1960s all the way up until around 2012. We'll see which ones pass the tests of good writing, plot, characters, and canon, and measure up to the old school standards of Trek. We're looking for those books you pick up when you're bored with watching and rewatching the old school series and you just need that Star Trek fix. We'll cover works written for Star Trek the original series, The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise. Works will be evaluated on a 1 through 5 star rating system, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. Don't waste time sifting through the hundreds of novels out there to find a good Star Trek book. Look through our reviews and find a read that suits your interest. Consider us your guidepost to great Trek. Now before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe. On this edition of ReExamined Reads, we take a look at Crisis on Centaurus, an original series novel by Brad Ferguson. It was published in 1986 by Pocket Books, a division of Simon & Schuster. It is available on Amazon. See the link below. There are no prerequisite episodes to watch for this book, as it could take place anytime during the 3 seasons of the original series. This book includes the character of Joanna, Dr. McCoy's daughter, among its cast. For those who don't know, D.C. Fontana, one of the writers of the original Star Trek series, and Gene Roddenberry had intended to introduce Joanna at some point after Season 2, but never did. She was mentioned in Star Trek the Animated Series Season 1 episode The Survivor, but we never saw her. So let's take a look at the plot without giving too much away. The unthinkable has happened. A group of terrorists have detonated an antimatter explosion in New Athens spaceport on Centaurus, killing nearly 1 million people. The Enterprise, experiencing malfunctions of her own, is dispatched at once for rescue operations. 3 hospital ships are to meet Enterprise in orbit, while other fleet vessels are on the way. Upon reaching the planet, the crew finds all 3 medical ships destroyed, and the Enterprise comes under attack by the planet's malfunctioning automated defense system. 2 teams are dispatched in shuttles. Kirk and Sulu head up a team to meet with what's left of the government, and a second team, headed by Spock and Chekhov, head to the planetary defense complex. Scotty is overwhelmed with repairs on the ship, so Lieutenant Uhura is left in command. The crew must find out who detonated a weapon of mass destruction and why. They also have to shut down the defense system, or no vessels offering aid can make orbit. On top of all this, Spock and Kirk promise McCoy that they will find Joanna. There are a number of canon liberties that are taken with this book. Not violations, but things that never came up in the original series, such as how Kirk owned property on Centaurus, and how Kirk and McCoy first met. That last one doesn't bother me much, as I don't consider the Abrams universe canon, and the land purchase would fit in with Kirk's character development. The inclusion of Joanna McCoy seems like it was thrown in just because the author wanted to place her there, not for any story enhancement. She turns out to be a minor player, unworthy of the scant attention she gets. There is also the matter of, in the animated series, Joanna was in medical school 10 years before this novel, and the location was Cerberus, not Centaurus. The animated series is considered canon by some, disregarded by others. We'll let the reader make up their own mind. This might be giving a bit too much away, but we didn't quite get the terrorists. They want to surrender to Kirk, who represents Starfleet and the Federation, where they will go to prison, and not the Centaurans, who want them put to death. It just seemed to us that people committed enough to kill over 1 million for their political beliefs would have spent more time trying to get away, and not just immediately surrender. And eluding the authorities would seem to be a more realistic approach. Keep in mind that going on the lam in the 23rd century isn't impossible. After all, Kodos the Executioner of Taurus IV hid for decades in plain sight. This book has many positives. First, the book is a good action-adventure novel that is in some ways ahead of its time. The idea in the current day and age of a weapon of mass destruction being used by terrorists is nothing new. But back in 1986, when this novel was published, the WMD threat was thought to be more about other nation-states and the Cold War, not individuals in small groups. For that concept, we give the author credit. However, there are also a number of references to companies doing business in the 23rd century that keep Ferguson from taking the title of futurist. 2 that are mentioned are Sears Roebuck & Company on Centaurus and Pan Am. Maybe these companies will make a comeback. In the end, ReExamined Reads gives Brad Ferguson's Crisis on Centaurus a 4-star rating. We had considered a 3-star, but we enjoyed a number of aspects of this novel, including Lieutenant Uhura in the big chair, as well as a plot twist with Kirk and the temporary government. The final few pages were also interesting in explaining the malfunctions of the Enterprise that were mentioned in the beginning of the book. Ferguson's writing style also captures the feel of the original series, and keeps things moving along to a point where sections are real page-turners. These combined factors make Crisis on Centaurus a recommended read. Leave your comments on this book and suggestions for Star Trek novels you'd like to see reviewed below. If you really enjoyed this presentation, after you like and subscribe, send a link of this channel to your favorite Star Trek fan. It would be much appreciated. As always, thank you for watching.